Welcome to the SuperAbundant Life podcast, where we teach the Bible in a simple, authentic, and practical way so that Christians can skillfully apply the Word of God to create supernatural results in every area of life. This is your host, Olawunmi Brigue. Today, I'm going to be talking about, naysayers, doubters, and even haters. Who are these people? Why are they coming after us like this? Okay, so I decided, in fact, God reminded me that I must say this. Okay, number one, I'm not coming at this from a place of judgment. I'm coming at it from a place of awareness or enlightenment so that we become more aware of the roles that some of these people that come into our lives will play. And awareness is a good thing because it opens you up to how to deal with situations when you have a good deal of awareness. So that's first reason. The second thing that I wanted to say is that this is a two-edged sword. So when I say naysayer, when I say doubter, when I say hater, you are also playing the same role probably in someone else's life. Okay, so this is not like a bunch of people that are just wicked, that just, some island somewhere and their sole purpose is to come and scatter somebody's dream. No. Every single one of us at some point or the other, we will be doubters in somebody, to somebody's dreams. We will be naysayers and maybe even haters. Okay. Hopefully not. But the truth of the matter is, we could even be haters. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, don't be so quick to say, hey, I just know that these people. No. It's about bringing awareness and also to understand that as you're listening to me, you're not just listening to identify people that are doing that against you or to you, but to also put on the hat of, I might be a naysayer in somebody's life. I might be a doubter or even a hater in somebody's life. Now, don't worry too much. I'm going to explain and define what all these words mean. No, I know you know what they mean, but in the context of what I'm going to be teaching, because it might vary or differ slightly to what the other people may call them, or what, mainstream, what might be in the mainstream regarding the particular word. So stay with me. I'm going to explain what I mean by naysayer, what I mean by doubter, and what I mean by hater, and also how to handle these people, these relationships in your life. And when I say relationship, I don't necessarily mean someone that you know well, that is in your life for 10 years or whatever it is. It might literally be someone that is walking by you on the road and you only know them for 5 seconds, but they leave an imprint. Do you understand what I mean? So stay with me. This is a very interesting episode. I loved prepping and putting this episode together, and also because it is something that is superbly relevant. You cannot escape this. You heard me say that in the intro. If you have anything worthwhile that you want to do, in fact, you don't even need to have a dream that's worthwhile. You can only be breathing. Do you understand? You can be breathing and there'll be doubters and haters. In fact, even people that are no longer breathing, that are dead, they still have haters. How much more those of us that are alive and breathing? Do you understand? So, yes, I'm very excited about that. So let's get into it. So the first one that I'm going to start with is the naysayers. All right. Like I said, I'm going to define what I mean by the naysayers. I'm going to give examples from the Bible and in a more practical, relatable way in our own world today, and then give you one strategy that you can use to handle that relationship or those people strategically so that they don't end up stopping you from achieving your dream. So who are the naysayers? Who is a person that I would call a naysayer? Now, a naysayer is basically someone that they just cannot see the good in anything. Do you understand? Very negative. Very negative. Now, if I'm sure as I'm speaking, the whole idea is to be able to pinpoint and identify some of these relationships that are already in your life, and maybe even have a bank of information to help you if somebody like that should come into your life. Now, I'm talking about just generally negative. All right, just generally negative. They don't see the good in anything, or they like to pick holes in anything and everything except when it is their own idea. I'm trying to be as detailed and explicit as I can so that you can form an image of what I'm talking about. Now, someone that I call a naysayer is someone that is so convinced that they are right. As a result of that, they are closed to any other suggestions. Okay, so they have their own preconceived ideas. They have their own preconceived ideas, and whenever anything that differs or looks different to that preconceived idea shows up, they're like, no, it can never work, and they begin to pick holes in it. They're just generally negative towards ideas, towards suggestions that other people may bring into their space. The only thing they seem to be fully convinced about is an idea that they bring to the table. Now, the thing, I'm going to keep describing who the naysayer is. The naysayer is someone that will still maintain their position and just keep resisting and opposing this idea or this suggestion, regardless of evidence after evidence that is presented to them. So they are prejudiced, and as a result of that, they are blinded. Okay? So they are pretty much blinded by their own prejudice. Now, the first thing I want you to know about the reaction of the naysayer to you is this. It's not personal. Okay? It's not personal. A naysayer will oppose their grandmother, their mother, their father, their dog, their wife, their husband, their boss, their child. Do you understand? It's just a way of thinking. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So it's not like, oh, I have something against you personally. No. They just are very negative. Now, when I say negative, let me qualify this. It may just be one idea. It may just be one thing that they're so convinced about, and as a result of that, they will not open up to any other idea regarding that particular thing. So whatever comes up that seems to be slightly different from what they believe, they will immediately shoot it down because they're like, no, it can't be that way. So a naysayer could be someone that is opposed to an idea or a way of life or something, or could just be someone that is generally negative. I hope you understand what I mean. The naysayer is primarily driven by pride and closed-mindedness. So what drives them is not a personal vendetta. They don't personally have anything against you. Do you understand that? I'm certain that as I'm talking, you can pictures are forming in your mind, either of someone that you know, hey, I know that person is definitely a naysayer, or you yourself are being a naysayer in somebody's life. Do you understand? It's a double-edged sword. Okay, so it's driven primarily by pride or by closed-mindedness, whether to an idea, to a way of life, or to life generally. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example or a few examples. The first example I'm taking from the Bible, and it is Jesus versus the Pharisees. The Pharisees, that's a classic example of naysayers. All right. They were not opposed to Jesus personally. They did not have anything against Jesus personally. It was the things he was saying. It was the things that he was doing, right? They just couldn't stomach the idea of someone doing it differently to how they did it. Do you understand? They were so proud that they believed that the way they knew how to do it was the only way. How dare this carpenter that didn't even train in the Torah, come and tell us who is the son of God and who is the son of man, and blah blah blah. So they were like, how dare you, we know this thing, you cannot present a new idea. So they were so closed-minded that they were not willing to open up and even allow any suggestion of something new to come into their space. So that's a classic example of naysayers, all right? Of naysayers. I mean, for them, they read in the law that it said, don't do any work on the Sabbath. When Jesus presented a new idea that it wasn't about the Sabbath, God created the Sabbath to give man rest. So he actually created the Sabbath for man, not because the Sabbath was some kind of deity that man had to bow down to, and was saying, I can heal on the Sabbath because the Sabbath was created to help man. It's a tool. When he came up with that kind of idea, it's like, no way, the Sabbath is sacred, nobody's supposed to do anything. They could not just, so they violently opposed Jesus. Why? Because they were naysayers. They were so blinded to their own prejudice that they were not willing to open up to any kind of new idea from somebody else, all right, coming from somebody else, all right. If another example could be someone that is actually a member of your team that you are leading or that you are a part of. I remember years ago that I worked with someone that was, oh my goodness, very negative, right? Very negative. Every idea that came to the table, there was always something wrong with the idea. There was always something wrong with the idea. And the interesting thing, and this is what I'm saying about naysayers, right? The interesting thing about this was every idea that came, do you understand, that came from them was fine. They would push it and say, this is how I think it should be done. This is the direction we should go in, etc., etc. But if somebody else brings an idea to the table, they would immediately find something wrong with that idea. Right? As in, almost without fail, you would sit at meetings and you can predict that they would definitely say, listen, it's not going to work because of X, Y, and Z. I didn't, in all the years that I worked with this person, right? I don't think, I mean, we would sit at team meetings, and I wasn't a leader then. I was just a member of the team at work, and in my mind, I was just like I'll be counting to 10. We just waiting for this person to say, no, we try this, and this is why it's not going to work. This is the students are this, blah, 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 blah. And always without fail. But in fact, I even remember a few occasions where something that they had suggested that maybe, it just never really gained traction and we moved on from it. Then in another meeting later on, somebody presents the same idea, and again, like clockwork, they'll be like, no, it can't work, la 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 la, see, these are the holes in this thing, etc., etc. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, so you mean it is only the things that you come up with that will work? That's a classic example of a naysayer. Now, for somebody like that, okay, if you have a dream and you happen to have a naysayer, whether in your team, whether you're even married to a naysayer, whether the naysayer is your friend or whatever it is, or your boss, you need to know that it's not personal. That's one of the key things, one of the most important insights that will help you a lot in being able to handle a naysayer. It's not personal. It's not a personal attack. If you take it personally, you will hold that person in contempt because it gets a bit much. Do you understand? Like, and why are you always so negative? Why can't you support me? Why do you understand? You will become offended. You will start carrying offense and opening the door for Satan into your own life. Do you understand? So you have to tell yourself, it's not personal. It's not personal. It's just the way over time, the habit, it's a habit. Do you understand? It's not, they have over time done it so much that it has become a habit. It has become a habit. They just see obstacles in everything as to why, it's not, something is not going to work, blah, 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 why your dream is nonsense. And let me tell you 5 reasons why that's not going to work. It's just the way their brain has been wired out of habit. It is not personal. That's why I say whether it's their cat, their dog, their mother, their boss, their child, their wife, their husband, it makes no difference. They're like that with everything and everybody. Another expression of when you have naysayers is things like racism, sexism, etc. Right. Remember what I said about how despite evidence after evidence being presented, this person that's a naysayer, this group of people that are naysayers, they will continue to hold on to what they believe, and it is driven by pride and closed-mindedness. So things like racism. So despite evidence, being surrounded by evidence everywhere, for example, that Black people are intelligent and they're not inferior to white people, a racist will discount all that evidence in favor of their own beliefs. Do you understand what I mean? In favor of their own beliefs. It's the same thing with, a woman can't do this, a woman can't do that. Despite, you look around, women are presidents, women are doing amazing things, yet you say, a woman can't, be the CEO of a company. Where did that come from? They have evidence that it's not true, but they believe one thing, so they will discount that evidence. So that's an example of, naysaying that is wrapped around a certain ideal. Their prejudice is not about you. It's not about the Black person, right? It's not about you. It's not about you personally. It's a bigger issue than you. So how do you deal with this? Well, you will certainly waste time trying to convince them. Okay? Trying to convince them, say, oh no, actually no, because it's the way of life. It's the way they see that situation, and you will actually hold yourself back trying to convince a naysayer to change their minds. It's like Jesus abandoning healing the sick, raising the dead, providing bread, and going into the temple every day and trying to convince the Pharisees, listen, let me show you from the Torah. Actually, Isaiah said this and Ezekiel said that. It would have wasted the whole 3 years that he was supposed to have been preaching the gospel with the Pharisees, and at the end of the 3 years, they still would not have come round. All right? They still would not have come around. Some may have. So when you do that, you may gain some ground. You may have some success. But what I'm trying to say is it is bigger than you. It wasn't Jesus. It's not personal. And Paul tried that. He wasted so much time going into the synagogues. He will go into a new city instead of him to go to the Gentiles that jejely God sent him to. Say, no, these people must be saved. He'll go into synagogues. They'll beat him. They try to kill him. In fact, one time they stoned him. He said, do you understand? Until God said, do you know what? I'm going to go and lock you in a prison somewhere so that you can sit down and do what I'm telling you to do. Leave the Pharisees alone. Leave the Jews alone. Okay? Peter knows how to speak to them. Let him do that job. So it's bigger than you. It is futile to want to go around trying to persuade a naysayer. Listen, do you know what's the strategy? How do you strategically handle a naysayer? Just keep doing what you're doing and ignore them. This is how you deal with a naysayer, right? Don't get into confrontations. Don't get into arguments trying to bring them round, because you cannot out-argue a naysayer. Do you know why? It's not new. It's not someone that's just thinking, well, they're closed. Their minds are closed. All right? These people's minds are closed to that idea. Do you understand? And it is a way of thinking. So you will waste your time trying to convince someone that is a naysayer that, regarding that your specific dream. You just need to keep going. The same way Jesus just carried on doing what he was doing. And as he did that, some Pharisees were converted. They slowly got to the point where the evidence started to sort of erode some of their prejudices. And some got to the point where eventually they were like, oh, okay, he truly is the Messiah. And they crossed over. But the majority of them, guess what? Did not. Okay? They did not. So if you have someone like that as your team leader, like your boss, what do? You have to just keep being your best. I'm telling you, if you don't get into loggerheads, keep being your best, and then put your trust where? In God, to bring the right opportunity for you to shine. So if you have love ideas that you just believe could work, but this person is not even, like I said, a naysayer will not say, well, I'm not sure that idea could work. It is like almost pretty much every idea that is presented, they will find holes in it. They'll say it can't work, it can't work. That's a naysayer. You will exhaust yourself. In fact, you will depress yourself. Always trying to keep saying, well, let's try it. Listen, the one they have told you to do it with all your might. And just commit yourself to God, that the right people that will believe in that dream and your vision. So this is where you can't just walk out now. Do you understand? So like I said, if it's someone like that you can literally just ignore and say, listen, go your way, I'll go my way. Like Jesus and the Pharisees. He went his way. They were the ones that kept coming to find him. But he didn't hang around them. But if you're stuck in a relationship, like the person is your boss or your spouse even, that's a naysayer, listen, just keep taking baby steps, all right, towards that dream. Hold that dream. Keep being your best in whatever is your responsibility. So whatever you have been assigned to do as part of that team, just keep being your best and commit it to God that the right people, the right opportunity for that dream to happen will present itself. That is the best you can do if you are in a relationship where a naysayer is in authority over you. If, another example is, if it is somebody that you lead, so someone, that is part of your team, you may need to get them out of your team. Okay? Constant negativity. It's exhausting. You will not really move forward at the rates that you are supposed to move forward if you have a naysayer in your team, right, that has influence. The person will hold you back. So if, for example, you own a business and you hired somebody that is a naysayer, you just have to take responsibility and say, how did I end up hiring somebody like this? And you may need to get them out of your team. If it's not that simple, right? So you work for an organization, they are the head of a team, and there's somebody in there that you can't just sack, right? This is what I would recommend that you do. Okay? Find what they are great at and assign them to it. Just let them be doing their job, all right? It is not a naysayer that every time you have an idea that you now go and say, hey, let's sit down and start discussing. They will out-discuss you. They will out-argue you. You understand what I mean? Because they're experienced at this. They've had a lot of practice in finding holes in things, so much so that that thing cannot move forward. By the time they have picked it apart, by the time they have said all sorts and looked at it from every angle as to why it can't work, even you that, when you woke up that morning, you were so excited. By the time they finish with you, right, you'll be like, it's true, it can't work. So just, if you can't really get them out of your team, and especially if they're fantastic at maybe their job or something, just give them that job, let them be doing that job. Don't try to convert them into an ally. You will waste your time. I've already talked about that. And don't put them in a position where they are part of the engine in that team. Or, do you understand? The engine in the machinery. Because if the engine is not working, the machinery, the team can't move forward. So don't put them in positions where they have to make decisions that will move the team forward, because they will slow you down. Okay? Simply use them as a tool, as part of the machinery. So what are they brilliant as? Commit that to them, give them ownership of it. You know they're going to deliver. Let them just get on with it. That is how you handle a naysayer. Did you notice, right, that Jesus never tried to win Judas over? And did you ever wonder why? Why didn't Jesus sit Judas down and say, Judas, do you know what? No, it's not. It's fit. Because Jesus knew. He knew. He knew, right? It was like, why do you want to betray me? Why do you want to do something like that? Money is not anything. Why didn't Jesus sit down and have that conversation? It's because Jesus knew that the greed had so consumed Judas that it was not anymore about Jesus. The money had so much entered into him. In fact, the Bible says that Satan entered into him. Do you understand? So Jesus knew that it's not personal. Jesus had presented evidence after evidence for 3.5 years to Judas, but the greed had taken hold of him that Jesus knew that it would be futile to try and save this one. So it was just like, I can't convince this naysayer. So do you know what? Judas, you're part of the 12, right? I'm not going to get rid of you because you have a purpose. You have a part to play. So the thing that you want to go and do it quickly. Do you understand? So Jesus was like, okay, you handle the money. You're good at that or whatever it is. He was like, just, you're part of the team, but you're not part of the inner caucus. That's what I'm trying to say. Jesus did not put him as part of the 3, James, John, and Peter. All right? He didn't put him as part of the 3, as part of the inner circle, because that's bringing him to be a part of the engine in the machinery. He put him as a tool. You have your role. You have your place there. You're very good at it. Carry on. Carry go. Okay? I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. Listen, I've presented you with so much evidence. Just do whatever it is that you're good at. All right? He didn't try and build the church upon Judas. That would have been a grave mistake, and it would have seriously affected the movement. So that is how you deal with a naysayer. Let me move on to the second category, which is doubters. Doubters. Now, who are doubters? Very different from naysayers. For doubters, it is not just, I just disagree because they want to be right, okay? The doubter disagrees or opposes simply because they can't see what you are seeing. And I'll explain, I'll give you, I'll qualify that. They can't see what you're seeing, right? Their own opposition is a reflection of their own fears. It's a reflection of limited sight. Okay, unlike naysayers, now this is the difference, there isn't a lot of evidence to discount what they believe. All right? For a doubter, is literally they doubt it. There's no evidence. So you say, you're earning £50,000 now. In the next 5 years, I'm going to be earning £1 million a year. And they look at you and they say, how? Is it yam? How are you going to do that? And do you understand? There's no evidence. They're like, but this is where you are. How are you going to reach £1 million in 5 years? So are they going to dash you? That's a doubter. All right. Now, if you go and start getting offended at a doubter that they didn't immediately jump and support your dream, you're making a mistake. Because it's not as a result of them not necessarily believing in you. It's because they don't have evidence. Doubters are actually closer to your dream than naysayers. Doubters are usually good people to have around that you can very easily turn around to your advantage to become your allies by presenting them with evidence or inspiring them to believe in your vision. Naysayers, no matter what you say, because remember, they have been presented with all sorts of evidence. They don't care about the evidence. They just want to be right. It is driven by pride. It is driven by being closed-minded. Right? For the doubter could even, a lot of times, could even genuinely care about you and be concerned about you. They don't want to see you disappointed. They just, at that point in time, lack the foresight. So you're saying, I believe, that I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to, apply for this job and go for that role. And your team member is looking at you like, I don't think so. You might get offended and be angry that this person, why they not supporting me? It could be your spouse. But they don't see what you see. Do you understand? All right? For them, it is more about a lack of evidence. All right? They look around and the evidence around them is telling them that this thing that you're saying, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. And for the ones that love you, they want to protect you. They don't want you to fail. They don't want you to be disappointed. So they will try and shield you by saying, no, I don't think you should go for it. I don't think, do you understand? That's a doubter. Okay? That's a doubter. Their judgment is based on limited information. They are basing it purely on who they've always known you to be, whether in the past or how they see you now. Their main push, or they're mainly driven by the desire to play it safe. All right? The naysayer is driven by pride and close-mindedness. For the doubter, it is driven by, for a lot of times, to play it safe, to protect. To play it safe, to protect. Say, no, I don't see how that's going to happen, right? I don't see how it's going to happen. Evidence shows me that it hasn't really happened this way. How is it going to happen? You don't have enough. So when, for example, Jesus said, feed the 5,000 plus the women and children. And they came and said, how is that possible? We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Those are doubters. Just that. They're like, what are you going to feed them with? So it wasn't like the Pharisees that were like, we've seen, do you understand? It was nothing like that. He just looked and said, how, based on the evidence, it's not possible. So imagine if Jesus had gotten upset and said, why, I don't understand, you people, you never support me. You're always saying it's not going to happen, blah, blah. No. When Jesus presented them with evidence, when they saw the basket starting to overflow, did they change their mind? Yes. That's the difference between the naysayer and the doubter. Once evidence begins to present itself, the doubter almost certainly will change their mind and they will jump on board. Another example is Ruth and Naomi. Naomi was not being malicious. When she said, Ruth, you have to go back, she simply could not see what Ruth was seeing. She couldn't see it, right? She was like, go back. From evidence, even if I give birth today, even if as we get there, I find a husband, right? And the same night I must conceive. And then I give birth and I have a baby boy. Then I must have a baby boy. It can't be a girl. Then if I have a baby boy, then you now need to wait, 18 years or whatever, before you can marry. And then what is the So she was like, listen, based on evidence, you need to go back to your own country and find a young husband to marry you and move on with your life. But Ruth said no. So imagine if Ruth had started to attack Naomi, why are you not supporting me with this? I don't understand. No. Naomi simply lacked foresight based on current evidence. Okay? Based on current evidence. Another example from the Bible was Thomas. Did you see how Jesus responded to Thomas? Did Jesus go and slap Thomas and say, what is wrong with you? I don't understand. Yeah? Did I not say blah, 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 blah? Jesus simply went and said, oh, you need evidence. See my thumb, see my print, see the nail print in my hand, this is how you deal with doubters. And I'm going to explain in more detail coming to that. But first, I want to read something to give you an example of doubters, how doubters actually play out in our lives. And this is Kamala Harris, the vice president-elect of the United States, and I'll just read something that I read about her. It says that in 2003, at the time, she was a 38-year-old lawyer. She decided to run against the incumbent Terence Hallinan for the city's district attorney seat. So she was told by many people that the race would not be in her favor, as she was a little known prosecutor in the city. Can you see the reason? Says she was a little known prosecutor in the city. A lot of people told her not to run, but she pushed past the doubt and she ran anyway and went on to become the state's first Black district attorney. Okay? They said, nobody knows you. We need somebody. The person that can probably win is someone, especially, the incumbent is very popular. He's been there. Everybody knows him. And then someone that nobody knows wants to run against the incumbent. They're like, you don't stand a chance based on evidence. That is an example of doubters. So you have to know how to handle this kind of people. Okay? Now, the most important thing in handling doubters is this: do not burn bridges, because you can very easily and very quickly turn a doubter into your biggest advocate. They are not like naysayers. Naysayers, their minds are made up, and even if they do come round, it would take something dramatic like Paul. It took Jesus coming down by himself with the blinding lights before Paul could turn. I mean, you could waste your whole season trying to convince a naysayer, but a doubter will very easily come around based on new evidence. Do you understand? Based on new evidence, a doubter can very easily come around. So don't burn bridges. They could still be relevant in your life. Ruth needed Naomi. Do you understand? If Ruth had fought with Naomi, now she needed her. So Jesus also needed Thomas. Do you understand what I mean? So your goal is to gently but firmly seek to bring them to that place of awareness. You cannot be looking at your husband or and be saying, well, I'm just saying. No, you have to find a way. Do you understand? Because they're like, I don't think you should go and start that thing or whatever it is. Why? They don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you fail. So for people like that, you have to know that ultimately they are for you. The reason why they're even saying don't do it, it won't work, is because they are for you. They are for you. The naysayer is for himself or for herself. The doubter is for you. They're seeking to protect you. Do you understand? They're seeking to protect you. They just don't see how it will work. No evidence. So what you do, you increase the evidence. All right? You increase the evidence. Now, keep moving forward, because that's how you're going to show them the evidence. So, for example, a wife tells her husband that I want to start this business, etc., etc. And he's like, no, you can't resign or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. So she's like, okay, fine. Okay, I'm not going to resign. She continues doing her day job. She's being her best. She's still getting the salary, etc. But she's now starting to invest 1 or 2 hours every night into this new venture, this new business that she wants to start. As the thing begins to grow, the man is observing. Do you understand? He's looking with corner eye. He may not say anything, but he's observing. He's looking like, okay, there might be something here. So continue to move forward, continue to generate the evidence that this thing can work, and by themselves they would turn around. When Jesus went to meet Thomas and said, okay, touch my hand, touch the print, put your hand inside the hole, Thomas fell down and said, my Lord and my God. So that's a doubter. This is how you engage with doubters. If you have doubters in your team, all right, in your team, especially if you're a leader of a team and you have people that, because in order to fulfill any kind of vision that you have for that team, for that organization, for that department, you have to learn as a leader how to carry people along. Because at the moment, you are the visionary, you are the one that sees where you're going. So one good way, practical way, is to work on your communication skills. The ability to communicate a vision and to inspire people to follow you is what leadership is all about. So if you have doubters, and you will certainly have doubters because they don't see it yet. You arrive on Monday morning and say, hey, this is how we're going to increase our revenue by 500%. And they're looking at you like, oh my God, does that mean we're going to work 5 times more? And they're like, oh no. And you can see the abject lack of enthusiasm on their face. You can't shout at them and say, I don't understand. Why can't you people just support me? No, they don't have the evidence yet. You need to inspire them. You need to show them consistently the evidence. You can use your words to give them the evidence the same way Ruth did. I mean, Ruth didn't go and grab Boaz and say, listen, that's the person I'm going to marry and I'm going to have a child, and the child will eventually be in the lineage of Jesus. No, she couldn't have done that at that point, but she used her words. She communicated the vision in a way that Naomi caught on, and she was like, okay, let's move forward. Okay? So this is how you deal with doubters. Don't burn bridges with doubters, because they can be your fiercest supporters. Keep moving forward. Remember what I said. So don't park there and say no, time is going. So keep taking steps forward, generating evidence, and secondly, work on your ability to communicate that vision. So don't compel doubters to come along with your vision regardless. They will resent you. Okay? And don't also assume that they will just fall in line. So don't compel them, and don't assume that, well, because you are my husband, you have to support me. No, it doesn't have to support you, because you can't see what you're seeing. Okay? So this is how you deal with doubters. Now on to the last category of people that will or may oppose your dream. Haters. For naysayers, we said it's not personal. Okay? It's not personal. For doubters, there's an element of personality in it, because they care for you. They are motivated more like, oh, I want to be safe. I don't want to push boundaries. I don't think this will work because I don't have evidence. For the haters, oh yeah, it's personal. It's personal. It's personal, baby. I mean, it could be you personally that they are coming after, or this is probably even more dangerous. It could be the idea of you. Do you understand? They see you, all right? They see you as somebody else they have an issue with. They see you as somebody else. So somebody had hurt them, for example, and as soon as they see somebody that is similar to that, so maybe in their last job, okay, for example, their boss treated them anyhow. This person was like this. As soon as they start the new job, they have identified you with the person that hurt them, and so they're coming after you. All right. So it could be you personally that the hater has a problem with, or you could represent in their eyes someone that hurt them or they have something against. So for the hater, it is always personal. It is never random. Okay? It is never random. It is always about the person that is in front of them, that they're like, listen, you are going down. I'm coming after you. All right? For the haters, they are driven by vindictiveness. They're driven by resentment, which could be as a result of jealousy. It could be as a result of envy or even hurt, as I said. Okay? They're jealous, they're envious, or they're hurt, whatever it is. That is what drives them, and it is personal. So they antagonize and they attack. So that's the kind of one they're like, what did I do to you? I don't understand. Do you understand? They don't even care whether there's evidence, there's no evidence. It makes no difference. It's a personal issue. They have something against you personally. Okay? And they try and belittle. So these are the ways that haters actually demonstrate themselves. They're very offensive. They're always on the attack. Before you say one thing, they've said 10. That's a hater. Do you understand? And I'll give you some examples. Saul and David. That's an example of a hater. So Saul against David. For Saul, it was personal. It's like, you, this tiny boy, you want to come and take my throne? Never. He's going to my son, and he's going to last all of my generations forever and ever until all eternity. So he went after David. It was personal. He wanted to destroy David, as in at all costs. Okay? Another example is Cain and Abel. For Cain, it was personal. Right? He saw Abel and he thought, you are the one that prevented God from saying my sacrifice was good. And he basically, do you understand? So jealousy, envy, or hurt. So when I say hurt, the person did something to them and they're holding a grudge that has become some form of bitterness. And they're like, I'm coming after this person, or I'm going after this person. All right? And a third example from the Bible, just to show you different categories, okay, where this could happen. The third example is David's brother. All right, and I'll read that to you from 1 Samuel 17, 28 to 31. So when David showed up where Goliath was and the army of the Israelite army was, and his brother was a soldier in the army, and Goliath came and made his threats, and David was like, who is this one that's just threatening the army of the Lord like this? So he says, when David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. I mean, what did David do? So I'm trying to show you this one about hater. Do you understand? It's personal, right? He says he was angry. What are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? Can you see vindictive? Immediately on the attacking David, belittling him. Few sheep. You don't even have mouths to talk here. What are you looking for? This is for elite soldiers. My friend, go back to the wilderness and go and look after the few sheep. He said, I know about your pride and your deceit. I mean, what did David do to warrant this kind of attack? Nothing. Do you understand? You just want to see the battle. David said, Oga, what have I done now? I was only asking a question. Can you see the difference? He said, I was only asking a question. Compare this to, and I'll come back to this. Compare this to the naysayers. I want you to really get this right, because the way you deal with these things is different. If you go and deal with a doubter the way you deal with a hater, honestly, you are creating problems. If you go and deal with a hater the way you deal with a doubter, it can be catastrophic. So you need to try and understand who these people are, right? What roles are they playing, and to be able to strategically handle them the right way. The Pharisees, I said, were naysayers. Listen, if Jesus was, once they thought they had gotten rid of Jesus, if somebody else popped up, they would have shifted their attention. It was not about Jesus. If Jesus woke up the next day and said, do you know what? You people are right. Come and teach me. I want to become a Pharisee. They would have clapped. They would have applauded. It wasn't about Jesus. They were just so dogged in their own thinking, myopic, that they were not prepared to open up to anything. The hater, Saul was chasing, they say, until David is dead. He took all of the budget of the entire country and used it to try, do you understand? He left everything else, stopped paying attention to the country, to the agriculture, to whatever, and he focused all of his time and energy to try and destroy David. Okay? So you have to know, when it is a personal thing, they personally have something, whether it is driven by jealousy, by envy, or by resentment as a result of some kind of hurt or pain that they feel that they have suffered at your hands. Okay, so David said, I'm only asking a question. Then I'll continue reading. It says, he walked over to some others and asked the same question and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. How did David handle this? He simply walked away from his brother. He never engaged with his brother again regarding that matter. He walked away. There was a personal vendetta. He was jealous. He was envious because it was him that the oil was supposed to come on top. In fact, when Samuel saw Eliab, said, aha, we have found the next king. And he was going to pour the oil refused to pour. He was like, pour the thing now, Samuel. He said, sorry, the thing is not pouring. He said, you mean is that brat in the wilderness that you are now going to pour the oil? He had the jealousy plus envy plus everything rolled together. That's a hater. So what did David do? David moved away. He didn't even try and convince him. He didn't try and argue with him. He just said, oh, okay, do you know what? Stay there, Eliab. He just literally walked away and went and found somebody else and asked the same question again. Right? That was the last time we heard from his brother regarding that issue. So how do you deal with haters? You need to separate yourself. You need to separate yourself. Why? You need to move away because they are compromised. They are compromised. There's a seed of bitterness or envy or jealousy that has been planted inside them. Do you understand? And because it is personal, Satan, there's just too many possibilities of how Satan can take that thing and build it up in their mind until, do you understand? It is personal, it's you they want. I hope you understand what I'm saying. To try and understand the difference. It's you they're going after. So they are compromised. And if you keep hanging around someone that's a hater, they can end up causing you pain. Abel saw that Cain's attitude towards him had changed. Abel had taken on the seed of bitterness as a result of his jealousy of his brother, his twin brother. Do you understand? He had embodied inside Abel the cause of all his problems on this earth. It's Abel's fault. It's Abel's fault. Abel saw this. He saw that his brother's attitude towards him had changed. He still went to the field with him. Why? The man ended up killing him. If David had not run away from Saul, Saul would have killed him. Okay? Saul would have killed him. Do you understand? So when you identify that, those kind of people, they are compromised. You have to pray. In fact, if you're in a situation where you can't just sever the relationship, you have to pray that God will uproot them out of your life. Keep your own heart free of offense. Limit. So that is not the kind of person you now be gisting with. You now be telling all your secrets. Do you understand? You have to really put as much distance as is possible between you and that person and pray for God to uproot them. It's between you and God. You don't have to try and convince anybody. You're opening yourself up to God knows what. You don't bring people like that into your life and you're hanging out with them. There's a seed that is in their heart against you, and you don't know how vulnerable they could be one day. They could be feeling somehow, and then that's when Satan will whisper something that could end up harming you. So you have to keep your distance. I don't think when they went to the field, Cain planned on killing Abel. But because that seed was there and it was the right opportunity, and then Satan came and whispered and said, hey, see what he did to you. And the opportunity mixed with the seed that was in Cain's heart, and boom, there was a reaction and he killed his brother. So that's what I mean. So for that one, literally just commit them to God. People that you know, in your office, there's this senior manager that just does not like you. Everything you do will attack. Is a personal thing. For somebody like that, you have to pray that, listen, one or two things. this is what God says is mine. So you will either align with God. God said you can make peace. They will either make peace with me or I will remove them. Okay? So you have to be, that's how you deal with a hater while keeping your distance. Okay? Don't go and be having lunch, dinner with a hater and talking and just having, no. Okay? So, that is it. I will be back next week. Thanks.